You surface from the underground at Piccadilly Circus,
Mind the gap.
making your way through the glittering lights of London's West End. You take a turn down a quaint-looking street into the notorious neighborhood of Soho. The lights are dimming, the crowd is buzzing, and you've just tuned in to the best seat in the house. Welcome to The Big Smoke, a variety show podcast. I'm Kevin Bennett, and I'll be your guide through this experience of comedy, conversation, and community. And coffee! Because today on the show, we're brewing up a journey fueled by my favorite caffeinated companion. First up, I sit down with historian Matthew Green and Thomas Clare from Redemption Roasters, exploring the robust past and present of coffee in London. From the bustling coffeehouses of the 17th century to the powerful work being done today inside prisons. Then it's time to wander into our local village hall for parish notices. This week, we're discovering the quiet magic of little libraries. Those unexpected book exchanges popping up on street corners, bringing stories and neighbors together. And while we're on the streets with our coffee and book, we bump into comedian Kate Sharp and join her slightly unhinged walking tour of London's blue plaques. And finally, of course, we end the day with a pub quiz. This round, Coffee Curiosities. So, let's tune in. Conversation. Dr. Matthew Green is a historian, writer, broadcaster, and the author of Shadowlands, A Journey Through Lost Britain, and London, A Travel Guide Through Time. He also runs the popular Coffee House Tour in London. Thomas Clare has spent over a decade in a wonderfully eclectic coffee career, from serving celebrities to perfecting the espresso martini, a journey that's led him to his current role as in-custody training manager for London's Redemption Roasters. So let's pop into the cafe and say hello to Matthew and Thomas. Welcome to The Big Smoke.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
First things first, on our coffee journey here today, I'd like to take your coffee order. So what would you have? What would be your ideal coffee right now?
I'm a batch brew. I like
Batch
a filter
brew,
coffee. Yeah.
filter coffee. Okay.
Yeah.
Matthew?
Normally just a double espresso.
So we've got, today's all about coffee, one of my favorite things, my daily experiences. I always say, like many people, I'm sure, I have a really difficult, I wouldn't be able to be doing this, speaking without a couple of coffees in me. So, and we have, history of coffee, Matthew, Thomas, we've got, you work for Redemption Roasters, so there's a contemporary angle in terms of coffee culture in London now. But I thought it would be a nice place to start, Matthew, looking at the history of coffee in London. Before I started looking into you and your work, didn't really think there was a history of coffee in London. It's not a place that I think of as being associated with coffee. So can you paint the picture a little bit for us for the history of coffee as it pertains to London?
Yeah, well, in the 1650s, London was a pretty miserable place. You had the Puritans in charge, the taverns were shut, the playhouses were shut. Everyone was drab. And yet one day this incredible shack or shed appeared in a place called St. Michael's Alley, which is in the city. Run by this really tall guy with a twirly moustache and a brightly coloured turban, dispensing this diabolical looking and smelling concoction. But people were kind of curious about it. And before long, he was selling over 600 dishes a day. That was the first coffee shack, not just actually in London, but in the whole country. And people became peculiarly and almost instantaneously addicted to it. So every time I just watch both of you take a sip of coffee, but you're participating in a ritual that goes all the way back to that alleyway, which is still there. And the kind of paradox about this is that if I were to serve you the 17th century coffee now, which I might, you'd think it was horrible. And people back then thought that it was vile. Like they compared it to oil, ink, soot, mud, and quite a lot worse. But it was the effects of it that they adored, because up until that point, everyone in the city was either slightly or very drunk all day long. So you wouldn't drink river water unless you had a death wish. So this gave them windows of sobriety to think. And in the coffee houses, people came together, discussed ideas and were inspired. Then it proliferated. So there were 3,000 of these places by 1700, long before anyone was really drinking tea. I mean, a few people were drinking tea, but only incredibly rich aristocratic women. Everyone else was a coffee junkie.
So who was this guy with the twirly mustache who came over, and why did he, what was his connection to coffee?
Well, the guy with the twirly mustache, he was called Pasqua Rosé, and he was a Greek immigrant entrepreneur. And he worked for a British merchant called Daniel Edwards, who had traded in Turkey. And Pasqua had become his right-hand man, his broker, and executive assistant, I guess is what we would say today. And luckily for Mr. Edwards, it was said that Pasqua brewed the best coffee in the whole of the Ottoman Empire. He would brew it according to the old Turkish proverb, black as hell, strong as death, sweet as love, which is how coffee should be drunk. And eventually business took him back to London. So he brought his servant Pasqua with him. And he thought, well, we could, unleash this on the streets of London and make a fortune, which is what they did. So he was the first coffee king, really. And he set the trend. He vanishes from history in 1659. No one really knows what happened to him. It's a bit of a mystery. But the dream lived on. And these smoky candlelit places fueled by the disgusting, it wasn't called coffee, it was called bitter Mohammedan gruel. But always rolling the R, because it's meant to reflect. Yeah, always reflecting the granularity of it. So gruel, not gruel. You got that?
Yeah. Gruel. I used to have a hard time rolling my R's when I was a kid, but I sure
you perfected it by now. Yeah. So it was either that or the other name's quite interesting, actually. It was the soot-coloured ninny broth, which they...
Soot-coloured ninny broth.
Yeah, so soot-coloured. We get that.
Yeah.
Do you know what a ninny was?
Yeah, I can't remember what a ninny is. Tom?
I have
Do you know?
idea. It sounds a bit like a slur, maybe.
It wasn't a compliment. It was quite pejorative. So a ninny back then meant like an effeminate man.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where my mind was
like
going.
we might, I don't know, well, hopefully we wouldn't say anything like that, but like a pansy or something like that, maybe like, but this is because...
A dandy, maybe?
Not a dandy, because
No?
dandy did have traditionally masculine qualities.
Okay.
But these were people that women went around saying, instead of doing traditionally masculine things like fighting and earning money, they were admiring each other's wigs and talking about fashion and how to write the perfect sentence in iambic pentameter. And coffee was seen as an effete drink that would emasculate the men and make them lose their virility. That's what women said. It's not true.
Well, what's interesting, I was going to ask, so coffee becomes popular in London, and one of the things I love when I was reading about you is, as you just said as well, it launched a period of sobriety. Suddenly people are kind of thinking in a different way, and it has a real responsibility of just changing the way people communicate, the way people think. What do you think is tell us a little bit about that influence from your point of view.
Yeah, well, up until you had efflorescence of all these coffee houses, you'd go to the tavern or the ale house just to get blind drunk, to drink yourself into oblivion and forget all your worldly concerns. But if you suddenly have a space where you're sober, that precipitates a kind of different kind of conversation, a different way of thinking. Perhaps it's more rational, perhaps it's more creative. It's not like, let's just get blind drunk and wash away our sorrows. So what you see in the coffee houses in London, depending where they are, is all these incredible innovations. So the Fleet Street coffee houses, that's where newspapers emerged from, just because hacks would sit in the shadows and listen out till someone said something juicy, then they'd pounce, nick it, take it back to their printing houses and give it a bit of a spin. But also in Westminster, political discussion, there's a place called the Grecian Coffee House, which was near the Royal Society, where someone allegedly took a dolphin on their back. It was dead. And then they dissected it. Imagine doing that in a caffeineria. The caffeineria where we met. And Newton was there.
Upset. Well, actually, they might allow it in a cafe.
For a bit. Yeah. So modern capitalism was brought into existence in these, but in the end, the original model would be devoured and we're left with these awful Starbucks.
Well,
Which is a travesty. Am I allowed to say that?
You can say whatever you like.
Good.
You can say whatever you like. So I want to get to more of the details about the culture around these coffee houses a little bit later. Tom, you work for Redemption Roasters. You're the in-custody training manager. I want to bring you in here, specifically because, I think of Pasqua Rosé and the sort of adventurous coffee journey that brought to London. And you've had before you got to Redemption Roasters, you've had a really unique journey and career in the coffee industry. How did that journey lead you to this specific role? If you could tell us a bit about kind of what got you there and some of the other coffee adjacent positions you've held.
Yeah, so I've always been in coffee. So when I was 13 years old, I worked in a little bakery, and I was something like 5'1", so I couldn't see over the counter, so I couldn't really do much. So they gave me, yeah. I was also a short kid. So they gave me a stool and they put it in front of the coffee machine and said, "Make coffees."
Okay.
So I stood on the stool because I couldn't reach the coffee machine, and I stood in one place and just made coffees all day. And ever since then, I just kind of loved it. I went to college and worked in more coffee shops because we moved to a bigger city. Then came back to London, because this was all out in Canada, came back to London 10 years ago and just, again, kept working in specialty coffee shops. And then I started in an auction house where we made loads of coffee for sort of people that were coming by to see all the different art and stuff that we had, which was really cool. And I worked in a group of hotels where I was sort of the VIP coffee maker and group trainer. So we made coffees for a lot of different celebrities that were staying in these hotels, which was super interesting, super cool.
Which celebrity excited you the most that you got to make coffee for?
I think Angelina Jolie, she was really cool.
Okay. Was she satisfied?
Yeah. All I remember is the amount of security that she had to get to.
Oh, right.
To get to her room, because it was all room service. Like, you go out of the elevator and you're patted down by 2 security guards.
Did a security guard have to taste the coffee before? It's like a poison test. Like for royalty, they have to sip something. They have to try something before.
No,
Make
they
sure
didn't.
you're not poisoning there.
No, they did look underneath the cup. Yeah, they picked the cup up.
Wow.
They patted me down, went through the next door. There was 2 more security guards. Jeez. Did the same thing. Outside a room, there was 2 more security guards. And then, she was just lovely. Just a lovely, lovely human
Did any
being.
of them like spit it out in disgust and say, "This coffee's not good enough for me"?
No, but maybe one guy wasn't quite happy with my service.
Was he famous?
Yeah.
Who was that?
He was Ray Fiennes.
Okay.
Okay.
So he ended up having a "Do Not Disturb" sign outside his door. So naturally,
Well, you shouldn't have kept knocking on the door every 5 minutes.
I
This
didn't
is the
knock at all. I
problem.
walked away.
Now,
And he goes up and he's like, "Where's my coffee?"
And so how does this lead you then to Redemption Roasters and being the in-custody training manager? Because this is a very specific, I can't think of any more kind of specific role when it comes to being in the coffee industry. How does that lead you to where you are now?
So while I was at Lavazza, I was a coffee trainer, and I trained thousands of baristas up and down the UK. And then sort of during lockdown, I sort of left there and went into human resources, because I thought the only people that aren't getting fired at the moment were the people that were firing people.
Right.
And in my head, I was
Smart.
like, that's a good move. So I went into there and really enjoyed like the sort of employment aspect of it, but hated it so much. So while I was sat there 2 years looking for jobs, and I was like, I really miss coffee. So then I found sort of Redemption Roasters was hiring for a technician trainer, and I thought, I could do that. So I got the job and began training inside prisons again, and just loved it. The guys that we work with, they're great. They're there for a reason. They're working on bettering themselves, and they want to be there, and they're looking for employment through the gate. So it's just so awesome to be part of their journey.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that then. So first of all, just what is Redemption Roasters? How does it work for anyone who doesn't know? And then your role specifically within that.
So Redemption Roasters, we work inside prisoners and we train them how to make coffees. When they get released, we then help them into employment through the gate. So we also run a few like community coffee training sessions, but we hire them in most of our coffee shops. So about, I think at the moment, 34% of all our employees are prison leavers.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my role was to go into prisons, train up the prisoners. But then I sort of got promoted into sort of managing role where I managed all of our prison academies. So we're in places like H&P Highdown, Downview, Wormwood Scrubs, and Wandsworth.
And okay, and so what is your what exactly is it that you do? How does that work? Are you every day going into a different prison? Are you, do you work with people for a number of days? And what is the experience like? I would imagine, what I find so interesting is you've made coffee for, Angelina Jolie and, very a huge audience of people. Were you nervous the first time you went into a prison and thought, okay, I got to work with these people, or what was that experience like?
Oh, I was terrified. I remember the first time I went in for a training session, it was in Pentonville, and so it was like my second interview. And they put me in this room, and everyone's taller than me in any room I walk into. But now I'm in a room with criminals, and it's not a room, it was a cage. Like, it was a full-on, went into a cage with 2 coffee machines and 10 prisoners. And then they locked the cage sort of behind me. There was my manager and like the coffee trainer in there. And they were like, all right, teach these guys how to make latte art or how to steam it.
And how many people were with you in the cage?
So there was 10 prisoners.
Okay.
And 2 staff members.
Why did it have to be a cage? Couldn't it be like a locked room?
So it was only because I made it sound really bad. But the coffee machine, the coffee shop that we had was in a hallway.
Okay.
And it was huge. It was a very large hallway. So in order to keep all of the equipment safe and locked up, they basically built these like metal fences around it.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
It's more of like a metal room as opposed to...
They really wanted to thrust him into the
Yes,
atmosphere.
just
Into the
pure
atmosphere.
drama.
Exactly. Yeah, for the drama of it all.
Into the
And
cage,
so
the coffee
is that
cage.
the majority of your work then? You're in prisons doing this training.
Yeah. So I run a coffee technician course at Highdown, which is a 4-week course. So I'm in there Monday to Thursday, morning and afternoon, with the same 10 guys for 4 weeks.
Okay. And what has your experience been? I'm curious about what the process is. Are people pretty willingly doing this training, or is there what is the vibe in the atmosphere in these classes?
A lot of the guys have always said like this is their sort of favorite part of prison because it takes them out of the prison. It's like when they come down to our workshops, because we've set it up like a functioning coffee shop, it doesn't feel like they're in prison anymore. So they're able to like reform away from the trauma of like living on the wings and stuff. And they're able to really focus on sort of building a future for themselves. So the guys, they're so respectful. They're nice, they're kind, and they come down wanting to get away from the drama and just enjoy a nice cup of coffee and learn something.
What's the biggest surprise that you've had when when you learned this is what you were going to be doing? Was there any kind of expectations that were different from what they ended up being? Was it less intimidating or whatever? Like, did you think it was going to be a certain way or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely thought that I had to like hide being gay a lot more. When you initially think of prison, you think of like an extremely masculine place, toxic masculinity, like brutish people. Whereas we had a whole conversation about me and my husband the other day, and we were chatting about like holidays and stuff like that, and they're so open and kind. And I think people's first reaction of like prison is like a very homophobic and scary place, when sort of in actuality like it's not, and people are so much more accepting than people think.
And do you have any, because how long have you been at this role now?
It's like 2.5 years.
So how is the experience been with individuals then when they leave? Do you also work with them in getting them roles within the cafes around London?
Yeah, so I'm also sort of part support worker as well. So when they come through our program and get released, we're then helping them into employment through the gate. And so then we continue that support for as long as they need it, whether it's like weekly one-to-ones, help with food vouchers and Oyster card top-ups, and just making sure that they're not having to stress about getting into work and sort of changing their path.
It's interesting because one of the things that you told me before was, about the conversations that happen during the training. It's like there's the practical training. This is how you make latte art. This is how you steam milk. And then there's the other stuff. And this connects a little bit to what I want to ask you, Matthew, about in a second. But can you tell us a little bit about that? Did you think that was going to be a part of it? Has that become an essential part of it? The sort of conversations that you're having over coffee, the gossip, the stories, whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, I always knew that coming into this role, like, it's not going to be about the coffee. Like, yes, it's a 4-week coffee course, but
Sure.
It's not about the coffee. I think coffee shops used to be called penny universities, right? Where people would come in and they would learn from each other. And so that's what we've kind of created in this environment where, the first 45 minutes of our lesson is just getting ourselves a cup of coffee and just having conversations about things that are happening in the news. We're talking about random stuff like gravity and conspiracy theories. And the other day it was like, do carrots really help you see in the dark? And it's like, it's silly things like that. But then we also get into like a lot more depth about, okay, so if you were running the government, how would you lower the crime rate? And it's asking these people that are so involved in sort of crime that if they had the power to change something like that, what would they do?
I think it's really interesting in general, the concept of how, whether it be with prisoners or anyone, how we frame conversations and what we use to make those conversations easier. I mean, look, I said to you before we started recording, like, I wouldn't have these fascinating conversations with these interesting people if it weren't for the mics in front of us. It gives me an opportunity to talk to people that I'm fascinated in. And so the sort of activity of making coffee, giving you something to keep you busy while you're able to connect and these other people are able to connect, I think is fascinating. Which brings us all over to, I want to hear a little bit more about the coffee houses and the cafes and the actual buildings through history, because they really were so much more, it seems, than a place where you would just get your caffeine fix. Can you tell us a little bit, Matthew, about what the environment of those places were, what the conventions and the rituals were around the coffee houses?
Yeah, sure. It was completely different, from just a place where you go to consume the drink. Just as you were saying, like, it's about conversation. Obviously, the drink itself being disgusting, that is never really going to be the main focus, but it was the sobriety and the energy that set the tone. But if you'd walked into one of the 3,000 coffee houses, it's kind of, in a way, difficult to generalize because each one was different. That's why I think they were so fascinating to begin with, because no single coffee shop was the same. Whereas now if you go into a Starbucks in Clerkenwell, it's the same as a Starbucks in Cricklewood. They're all identical.
In Canada or anywhere.
Well, anywhere,
around the world.
Redemption rate is so great because it's bold and original and incredible coffee. And it's not just, like another boutique artisan, whatever. But you can still sort of piece together the general experience of going into one of these places. So you'd walk in and you'd hear like bubbling coming from behind the door, and you'd sort of hear it first, and then the clinking of the dishes, the squawking of the parrots and talking ravens they had in there that would emulate what people had said quite a lot of the time. It was kind of a cool idea. And you'd hear like the hacking coughs. Everyone would be smoking in those days. They had, it's really gross, but they had spittoons on each table, which would collect the spittle. And when the coffee cauldron, I'm sure you don't do this.
Redemption.
I hope not. When the cells are going to fall off a cliff. When the level of liquid in the coffee cauldron was running low, they'd pour the spit in.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And that was just one of many unwholesome ingredients in it. So you'd hear that. But then you'd walk in and it would like be walking into a kind of Turkish sauna. There'd be a haze of smoke and steam. sort of rancid, stale perfume. Because obviously
Lots of people smoking back then, or pipes, or
ladles. Yeah, like if you could smoke, you would.
Right.
Because they thought, again, it was a catalyst for creativity.
Yeah.
They thought that the warm, dry humours of the tobacco was going to spark the brain and bring you closer to God, basically. So they were chain smokers. Eventually, the haze would clear. This is the biggest difference, I think, between modern coffee shops and the original coffee houses, is that everything originally was communal.
Yeah.
Right? So it was a series of long communal tables. You didn't just sit on your own or at your own table. It was a long communal table with backless wooden benches. That wasn't just an aesthetic choice. It was deliberately done to maximize the interaction between customers so they could become, forums of conversation and debate, be it about carrots or ventriloquism or whether the king was right to do this, like fashion, music, whatever you wanted to talk about. And the minute they saw a new customer, everyone would stop what they were doing. They'd put down their dish of gruel. They would put down their newspaper if they're reading the London Gazette or the Daily Courant, something like that. They'd pick up their pipe and they'd point at you and scream out the words, "Your servant, sir, what news from Tripoli?" Okay, you got that? Just because that was like originally
Your servant, sir, what news
from the
from
coast
Tripoli?
of North Africa. Are there any pirates? So it became the kind of formulaic cry, "Your servant, sir, what news from Tripoli?" Sometimes it was abbreviated just to "What news have you?"
Okay.
which is easier to remember. And the only place where it was different would have been the Latin coffee house in St John's Gate. Have you seen St John's Gate in Clerkenwell?
Oh, I'm
Lovely
not sure
gate,
if I have.
greatest gate you'll ever see. It's a gate from 1504. It's more of a kind of
I love a good gate.
like arch,
Yeah.
but there's a room above it.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was William Hogarth's father's coffee house. But he had this madcap idea, which was that everyone had to speak in Latin. And if you didn't,
God.
you got chucked out. So that went bust after a couple of months. And he spent the rest of his life in jail, but without redemption, because he couldn't, debtor's jail, so he couldn't pay it off. So there was no hope. And that's where the young Hogarth grew up, seeing all these scenes of urban deprivation. So, all because of this Latin coffee house. But anyway, so what news have you? And although the technical currency was money, you paid a penny. Actually, you paid to get out of a coffee house, not to get in.
Oh.
People don't really realize that. A bit like a bar in Berlin. You pay at the end what you think one bar in Berlin, I don't even know if it's still there anymore, but you pay the the penny universe, but you could drink as much coffee as you wanted.
Yeah.
So you could sit there all day. But the real currency was news and gossip and rumor. So you weren't allowed to take your seat until you'd chucked something new into this kind of common wheel of news. So something you'd heard outside, something you'd read in the paper, but often it was actually something you just made up on the spot, like what we would call fake news today. Didn't have to be true. But then they would shuffle up. Oh, thank you. Yeah, how fascinating. Sit down. Then everyone would start discussing, what the piece of news was. So I read this incredible diary of a law student from Hackney, but he was kind of studying in the Temple to be a lawyer. And he travelled in from Hackney, following the route of the 243 bus today from Hackney Central all the way to Waterloo. And he went in at Moorgate, but en route he stopped off to watch an execution at Tower Hill. So there was a rebel lord being executed. Then he gets to the coffee house, the Dolphin one, in fact, and they're like, "What news have you?" He goes, "Well, I've just seen my Lord Derwentwater be executed." The next person's like, "Wow, okay, that's fascinating. Do you think the king was right to do that, or should he have shown mercy?" Then the next person along says, "Do you think being beheaded is the easiest way to die?" Then the next person's like, "Well, I did this experiment in my garden in Islington where I chopped a snake in half and the two ends slithered off." And then a philosopher says, "Well, that's evidence for the duality of the soul." Then a clergyman says, "You're not allowed to think that. That's heresy. I want to burn you." And it goes round and round. It's like a sort of carousel.
Yeah.
But it's all twined. And I think it's really fascinating. I mean, just imagine walking into a Starbucks or just going up to a complete stranger and saying, "What's the latest news? What's going on? Tell me about Trump. Tell me about Prince Andrew." Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they would think you were insane.
Especially in London, where I find people can be quite standoffish, or a lot of big cities are like that. I was wondering, actually, I mean, I love all those conventions and the sort of communal community forum nature of it. And I was wondering with Redemption, Tom, Redemption Roasters, do you find, I mean, these conversations happen when you're doing the training, but do you find because of the unique nature of Redemption Roasters and how when you go into the shops, it's often, advertised in different ways on the walls or whatever, talking about the impact and what Redemption Roasters is. Do you find that there are, I'm sure that nobody's coming in shouting, what news have you, but are there more conversations? Are there more connections that happen because of that, do you think? Or do people kind of, pretty much stick to the London, I'll have my flat white, thank you very much, goodbye?
I mean, there's definitely an element of people sticking to the London way of drinking coffee, and that's in silent. But yeah, I think more people definitely have conversations.
To me, I would think of it as something that I would be a little bit more inclined to ask maybe the barista a question. Not to say, are you one of the people that were in prison? No, but more like, oh, this is interesting, or, ask, I don't know what the question would be, but just because there's I was thinking about how so many cafes, especially the big chains we talked about, Cafe Nero or Starbucks, are obviously the opposite of these historic coffee houses. But I was thinking about ways that you can get people to start to have conversations and make connections and having a unique story, knowing that your coffee that you're going to buy if you go to Redemption, for example, is contributing towards this. Maybe that opens up a bit more of some sort of connection or conversation, especially if you're a regular at one of the shops or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. No, it definitely does. Because we've got all our statistics on the walls. And so people see that and then they start to ask questions about different stuff there. Obviously, we don't disclose anyone's history or the difference between any of our employees.
You don't put their crimes on the wall.
No, we don't, unfortunately.
Is it really successful in terms of providing gainful employment to former sort of prison inmates? Is it?
Well, this is interesting. I've got a couple of stats that I found actually on the website that I thought is useful just to throw out there that I thought was really interesting because, of course, one of the big problems in the UK and in a lot of countries in the world is reoffending rates and how the prison system is not rehabilitating people, obviously. It's very, very common. Something like 42% of prisoners in England and Wales go on to commit another crime within 1 year of being released. And reoffending costs billions every year. I think I read 4.5 billion every year. So what's interesting is on Redemption's website, it mentions in 2025, last year, 26% of our shop staff were prison leavers. The known reoffending rate of our participants was 0% compared to the national average of 42%. So obviously making a big...
It's 100% successful.
Obviously making a massive impact so that it's not just this revolving door. This is the whole problem. It's not only is it not helpful to the people, but obviously it's also a huge debt in the economy and all of these different things. So that's incredible. I mean, it's not really a question, but just mentioning some stats. I think what we should do is Matthew has provided or brought for us some 17th century coffee. Ooh. Not going to pressure you because I haven't told you until right now, Tom, but I will try it if you will try it. Would you like to have a sip?
Is it the one without the spit?
It doesn't.
There's
I'm hoping.
no spit in it.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's a good question.
Okay.
Does it have spit? Okay, so it's got no
Absolutely.
spit. So what I'll do is I'll give you. Here's a couple. Here's 3.
I feel so ashamed. This is going to be just compared to the kind of coffee that you make. This is going to be rancid.
I'm going to pass these over to you, Matt. Well, this is the thing.
I'm not actually. I'm not going to drink it. If that's
okay,
all right,
that's fine.
I know what's in it.
Because you know what's in it.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have a little sip.
Right.
We've got some water. So Matthew
can I just ask
some...
is anyone vegetarian?
No.
Oh God. No, I'm not. But
good. Are you allergic to anything? Even stuff that you feel might not be in a 17th century coffee?
I'm not.
I can't have milk.
Okay, there's no milk in it.
And penicillin.
I didn't put any penicillin in
good.
it. No.
You,
Not today.
by the way, Tom, you
Just in case, I don't know.
genuinely don't have to try this if you don't want to. I will try it.
I really want to.
Okay, because what I would love imagine this is your class and this one of your lovely students in your prison class, this is their first cup of coffee that they made, and I'd love you to, what would you say in response to if this is their first cup of coffee? So, but wait, I want to try it at the same time as you.
Okay, so
Oh.
Please,
Oh my God.
Please don't feel like
black
you have
as
to
hell,
have,
strong as death, sweet as it. So here's your dish of.
don't feel like you need to drink it all.
Something clumped out.
Don't sip it until did I give you a cup? I think
Yeah,
I gave you a
yours
cup.
is being poured as we speak.
Okay.
Oh God,
It's going to ruin your day.
I'm so excited for this.
Cheers, Tom.
Chin chin.
Okay. We're going to try this 17th century coffee. What news have you? You just made the mistake of smelling it.
I know.
I'm not going to smell it.
It's.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
your
God.
face is priceless.
Oh,
We need
I'm
to
going to
put
have a
that bit
sip
in the
of
film for
water.
sure.
oh God.
Lovely, isn't it?
Why is it crunchy?
Finish it.
That's
No,
the
I'm kidding.
goal.
Oh, thank God we've got other. Now,
It was
Tom,
called politician's porridge as well. And
Before
it's got
we
that
learn-
sort of consistency, doesn't it?
Where are the beans from?
before we learn what's
Are
in
there
it,
beans
I
in
want to
there?
hear, Tom, okay, so if this was the first coffee you just taught, you can put it down if you want. Now, if this was, okay, it keeps coming back.
I think you quite liked it.
Sure you don't want some?
No.
Matthew?
No.
Okay, so
Never.
Oh, it's very salty.
Yes.
Why is it so salty?
what
Well, I
would
can
you
tell you
say
what's
to
in
one
it.
of your, well, I want to hear what's in
Yeah,
it in a second,
okay,
but what would you say if one of your students, this was their first cup? Been teaching them how to make a batch brew and they pass you this.
Maybe coffee isn't right for you. No, I'm joking.
No specific. What are the tasting notes? It almost feels like it's gone bad. Like to me, before we hear what's in it, I'm just curious to analyze it. Like to me, it kind of tastes like it's got a little bit of mold maybe or something.
Like so much salt.
I don't mean it's an insulting way.
It was like it was brewed
salty
with seawater.
seawater. Okay.
I don't know.
So this doesn't
hints-
pass the course. They don't pass the course if they give you this.
No.
Okay.
We would work on it. Obviously, we've got 4 weeks to get them up to scratch.
This is day one.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
Matthew,
yeah.
17th century coffee.
Yeah.
What is in it? How do you make it? Tell us what we've just said.
Okay, so the beans are Arabica beans.
Oh, nice.
They're harvested from Yemen, actually.
It all sounds good so far.
And in those days, they would have called that the Arabian Peninsula. And
Okay.
they always traveled in via Constantinople. So that's why it always has these like Turkish associations. So what you do is you get the beans, you roast them over an open fire. So basically a barbecue. So, at 6:30 this morning, the neighbors thought there was like a weird barbecue being cooked. But it was
Should have used it by now.
Like
I feel like
right, a barbecued breakfast. But and that means when you roast it over an open fire, it means some of the beans are like overcooked and some are undercooked, so they don't really release those aromatic oils that makes the coffee so delicious, as you know. They're then grinded down by hand, which takes ages. Well, not literally, with a pestle and mortar.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. You then
No grinder.
no grinder. You then boil it with an aggression that would turn barista's blood to ice, just really aggressively.
Yeah. Taste it.
You can taste
The
that bit.
descriptions are so good.
And then it's at that point that various foul, unwholesome, and putrid ingredients are added. This is when the spit would have been added. I didn't do that.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It has got mustard in it.
Okay. Interesting. I like mustard on its own.
Yeah, not in coffee.
Not in coffee. It's packed with, or not packed, but it contains a lot of salt and pepper. I think you detected the salt at least.
Yeah, you
there.
did say
yeah, for
salty.
sure.
Pepper as well. It gives it a slightly sort of spicy feel. You then add the beef grease, as the recipe put it. Now,
Okay.
beef grease is basically just what we would
Sorry,
call
I'm
beef
sorry,
stock.
Tom.
That would be the nice bit. But in that, it was literally just the ooze that came fresh from the carcass.
Yeah.
Raw beef grease, usually from Smithfield Market. Then they would, I didn't do this because I didn't want anyone to choke, but they would add crushed eggshells into it.
Okay.
No one really knows
Some
why.
people still put eggshells in coffee.
Do they still put spit in it?
Not spit, but I'm just there's a
There is a reason for it, but I've never quite
it's
understood.
mentioned on Frasier, which is a constant
Okay.
reference point for me. Daphne puts eggshells when she first. Anyone who knows Frasier, I know it very well. When she's from Manchester in the show, the American sitcom. When she first gets hired by Frasier, she screws up Frasier's coffee. He likes the perfect whatever coffee in his sort of pretentious way, and she puts eggshells in it. They say she puts eggshells in it, and there's some joke about it. I can't remember what it is, but anyways, so there you go.
Well,
1990s reference.
It lingers on, yeah. I didn't do that because, on the coffee house tour, we did used to do that, and a number of people choked.
Okay.
They lived, but yeah. And then you take it away, and then you leave it to stew in front of an open fire, which is why it's got this kind of stewed prune-like quality to it. And then you serve it up. That was the elixir that you enjoyed so much. The only other thing they did, and this is kind of gross as well, but if you read there's a lot of pamphlet literature and satire about kind of mocking the coffee craze as it was back then, but containing, as satire does, a lot of truth as well. And piece after piece after piece suggests that if you let the cat, there was always a coffee house cat, if you let the cat go to the toilet in the coffee,
Oh, great.
that would improve the
He didn't
taste.
do that, I promise.
So, how do you know? I might have a cat.
Well,
maybe
that's
when I
true.
wasn't looking. So I think it all goes to show that it wasn't really about the taste. 'Cause today it kind of is about the taste.
Yeah.
People travel like the length and breadth of London to get the finest cup of coffee, and lots of article, whatever it may, in the Guardian or Time Out, where can you get the best? And that's part of it, but that really wasn't the case back then. You were going to different places because you wanted a different type of conversation.
Yeah.
And there were places where radical enlightened ideas were debated. People in the 18th, they were discussing things like whether you should get rid of marriage and just have polygamy. Atheism, they were discussing sort of proto-socialist ideas to some extent. Things that wouldn't really have been discussed elsewhere, and hopefully that tradition continues. With Redemption doing all the incredible rehabilitation work, it could be the kind of place where you discuss kind of decarceration in general. Like, is prison needed at all? Is that the best way to, if that is the kind of thing that would get discussed, then it would traditionally have been in the coffee houses, because they're public places, you're thinking clearly, and the coffee makes you want to talk and debate and just opens up horizons which you might not otherwise perceive.
It's interesting. This is back to the ingredients that I was thinking, what do I still taste? And the thing, I don't know about you, Tom, but the thing that I still can kind of taste now that you've described it, I think is the grease, or the whatever.
The beef grease.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, when you collect
Delicious.
the grease and it's under your sink or whatever, the bacon grease, the sort of leftover grease that I can, just to switch over.
It does beg the question, why did they want to add mustard? Why did they want to add salt and pepper? And my theory on that is that this was a deeply weird thing to have sold, to have got people to actually. There was no tradition of hot drinks. They had Hippocras in the Middle Ages, which was like spiced wine, but very few people actually drank that. The idea of a hot drink, of consuming that, this is kind of before tea, before chocolate, was weird. So the main marketing strategy was to say that it was a miracle cure, prophylactic, an infallible prophylactic, as they said, that would cure pretty much any ailment or affliction, dropsy, scurvy, gout, depression. They even said that it would cure the agonies of childbirth. And therefore it needed to have a sort of medicinal zap.
Yeah.
It needed to taste powerful. I think that's why they add all these pungent, horrible things.
Do you know if it had similar levels of caffeine to coffee today?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I mean, it wouldn't have been like espresso level because they didn't have the Gajia. But I think, it's a bit like if you have Turkish coffee.
Yeah,
today, or
and
Greek
I guess
coffee.
especially if you if this is in the early days of these coffee houses, that would have been such a difference, as you talked about going from drinking beer all day to drinking coffee. I was thinking that. But
they didn't drink it all day. They just had windows of sobriety and the drama of daily drunkenness.
Of course.
So no one would have just drunk coffee all day.
I don't know how you could handle that. Just last couple of questions here. Thomas, what do you think makes a good cup of coffee? now that we've been just discussing that? What makes a good, a good black filter? What about it do you think makes a good cup of coffee?
I used to have a really complex answer to that, and now I just think any cup of coffee without beef fat and salt.
Good answer.
No, I like.
It'll grow on you.
For me, I like complexity. I like drinking a coffee that. Yeah, that was very complex.
Lots of complexity.
That was so complex.
Complexity of horror.
Sometimes I like drinking a coffee that doesn't taste like a cup of coffee.
Okay.
So like there's a new, well, it's not particularly new, but in the last 5 years, they started really co-fermenting coffees.
This is so funny that you asked this.
Yeah, fermenting with different fruits. And I had this amazing one in Barcelona, and it was a mango coffee.
Okay.
And it just tasted like mango juice. It was unreal.
Well, you know what's interesting about this? Because one of my final questions actually was, one of the things I love to do in the podcast, because we talk to so many different people with different kind of topics, is I find someone in my life who has some connection to the topic at hand. So I asked my local barista near where I live, is there a specific question you would like me to ask to coffee aficionados, experts? And he said there is this relatively new thing that's quite controversial called co-fermentation. What is your opinion on that? It sounds like you like it, but before, can you explain kind of what it is and how it's different from, I guess, washed and natural processing? And then, what are your thoughts? And then Matthew as well, I'd be curious.
So basically,
this was co-fermented with something, what we've just tried today in many ways.
Co-fermented with a lot of things. Co-fermenting basically during the processing of coffee. So to get it from a cherry to a bean that's roasted. During that process, it's fermented with fruits. The coffee then takes on the properties and the flavors of the fruit that's in it and sort of adds to the complexity of the coffee, of the drink. It's then roasted, brewed. I think it sort of started around, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. And there was only a few people are doing it, but now it's sort of like gained in a lot of popularity. And there's a lot of people that are really experimenting with different fruits and stuff. And some of them do taste not great.
But you like it. You're all for co-fermentation.
Yeah,
You're not against it.
It's nice. It's not, it doesn't really like taste of coffee. And I think that's where the controversial side of it comes to, is that it's like, it's not a proper coffee. It's like a flavored coffee.
Sure.
But I don't know. I think it tastes
And
nice.
how is that different from, and I just learned this recently when I was asking my local barista about this particular question, but how does that differ from washed or natural, just in case people don't know? Because I didn't really actually realize the different types of processing.
Yeah, so there's loads. You've got washed, natural, honey. So washed is where they basically use water and machines to wash off all of the fruit and the mucilage and the skin off of the cherry. Dried or natural is where they lay all the cherries in the sun. And they lay them in the sun for like 30 days and they rake the cherries over and over. And as they dry, the skin and the mucilage will dry together. And then they put it through sort of like a pulping machine, which takes off all of the fruit.
And that has more, the ones that I've tried recently has more of the flavor, I guess, of the fruit in it.
Yeah, so the natural coffees generally are more fruitier because all of the juices, let's say, from the fruit that surround the coffee bean have been absorbed into the bean. So it tastes a lot more fruitier. Whereas when you're doing fermentation, it's not dried, but you're adding the co-fermenting, you're adding the different fruits into sort of the washed process to sort of soak it before it then goes through the next process.
Matthew, opinions on co-fermentation?
I'd never actually heard of that until you just mentioned it. Is it Bar Italia? Is that your local?
No, but it's close. I'm near a place called the Colombian Coffee Company. They've got a couple locations. I
was just interested because the Bar Italia is one of the oldest surviving of the old like 1950s espresso bars. I just thought, but no, I don't
cool
really.
Place.
Yeah, and it never shuts.
I know, I love it.
Yeah, you see the broken people the end of the
Yeah.
night, just sat there.
But you can
The
still get
Lost
it.
Lonely People.
But
it's
listen,
in
you can
the
get an
pop songs, isn't
espresso and a tiramisu at 4 a.m. if you want. It's
Yeah.
great.
Oh no, it's wonderful. I'm not that bothered about whether it, what the new flavor or whether it's got fruit in it. Like, I just want it to be really strong and hot. That's the biggest problem I have. I would say is that when I'm drinking coffee at home, I make it in the cafetiere, but then I end up putting it in the microwave about 5 times
want it to be
just for
hot.
what I know. I've probably like broken cardinal rules of coffee, but I need it to be hot.
Well, I think it's time for another coffee. I'm going to have a long black to
You don't want more
wash
of mine?
down. I think I'm going to have a fresh long black. Maybe I'll wander over to Redemption and get one of those. Are you guys up for another coffee, or have you had enough for the day?
I think I've maxed out. I've probably had like half a litre of filter and a flat white and whatever that was. So, I think
What's
I'm
your
done.
next order, Matthew?
I could probably do a single espresso, but
Perfect.
more than that, then it's going to get a bit jittery.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. It was lovely chatting with you
Thank you.
today.
Yeah, thank you.
When the bells ring out across the big smoke, it's time to wander into our local village hall to discover what's pinned on the parish notice board this week. There's nothing better than sipping coffee while digging into a good book. So let's walk down the road and see what we can find, because today we are delving into the world of little libraries. Have you ever strolled down the street and come across the intriguing sight of a miniature library? These curious collections can come in many iterations, inside defunct phone boxes, perhaps in a homemade cabinet, or even the simple sight of a cardboard box with a scrawled sign saying, "Free, take one." Whatever form they take, little libraries are becoming a more common sight across the streets of London and beyond. Might this be a response to the sad fact that in the UK, more than 180 public libraries have either closed or been handed over to volunteer groups since 2016? Communities and individuals across the UK seem to be taking matters into their own hands, tapping into the spirit of British novelist Kate Moss when she said that, quote, "Libraries matter. They are a place of discovery, refuge, and inspiration." While there's no official count, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of little libraries scattered all over the country. And to celebrate its 90th anniversary, Penguin Publishers, in association with the nonprofit Little Free Library, have established 90 of their own book exchanges called Penguin Bookstops here in the UK.
In general, I'm just a keen reader and have always wished to have one of those free little libraries outside my house, which can be challenging in a city like London when you're living in apartments and flats. But this was a real chance to have one of these little libraries. And so I applied to Penguin and responded to their call, and I had to talk about the community of where we live. And now I found myself in this position of being a steward. So it's very exciting. I think because it's Penguin, there's just a bit more excitement around it. I mean, I know there's lots of fantastic little libraries across the country, but there is something sort of extra special that it's come to the grid from Penguin to celebrate their 90th anniversary. So it's really been a talking point for neighbours and everyone on the street. So when often they walk past it and they see this quite official looking box full of beautiful books, it's really encouraged people to stop by and have a chat. And I've seen other neighbours chatting in front of the book stop. So it's just like a hub of interest around the book stop. And I've even had authors come by and leave signed copies of their own illustrated books. So there's unexpected things happen around the book stop.
That was the voice of Sophie Lucas, who out of 2,000 applicants nationwide was one of the lucky few who were successful in their bid to run one of Penguin's 90 UK bookstops. Sophie manages her little bookstop from outside her home in southwest London, in a community known as the Grid.
Penguin initially set up the bookstop for us. They all have the same design, but we were able to write our own message on the back of the bookstop and choose the name of the bookstop, which is written on the side. The bookstop is designed to look like a sort of a 3 books on a bookshelf. It's really beautifully designed, with the penguin logo on the front. So straight away you can see that it's related to books and it's penguin. So it looks very smart outside the house. So they set up the book stop for us, but then also sent us a box of books, sort of bestseller books, to get us going, which was incredible that we had such beautiful books ready for all ages and all types of readers to launch the book stop in September. So it was a very exciting moment, getting a big pile of books and looking at which titles they had included in the book initial sort of book drop, as it were. From this point on, occasionally they get in touch to say that there are new authors that would like to be part of the book stop and we can sign up for that. Then they'll send us signed copies of the new releases and other initiatives as well.
Although part of a nationwide scheme, Sophie has made the book stop her own, working hard to connect with local people and respond to them, creating small grassroots human moments.
In terms of connections made, I think what's magical about the book stop is it's nothing really momentous, but it's just small moments in people's day. Even when we had a Sainsbury's delivery, the Sainsbury's driver said, "Oh, do you mind if I really wanted to read that book and I can see it's in the book stop. Do you mind if I take a copy?" And of course, very welcome. He was very welcome to take it. And so I think it just means that you have these, and then we started talking about books over the delivery, and it was a really nice way to chat to him and hear he was starting a business, and it was a non-fiction book about challenges and starting your own business, and it was just the perfect book for him. So it was really nice to have that chance to talk to him and get to know him a bit more. And I think that's what the book stop's really done, is build those connections, the relationships with people that you don't really usually have.
Running the book stop is about more than just keeping the shelves full. As the author Philip Pullman once observed, stories are the most important thing in the world. Without stories, we wouldn't be human beings at all. By staying tuned in to what's happening in the world, current events, cultural conversations, and the books people are excited about, Sophie turns it into something bigger. A mini monoculture on the street, where neighbors briefly connect and share the same stories in a world that otherwise encourages us to read, think, and, let's be honest, scroll alone.
I tried to curate the box and what the books in it on a monthly basis. So follow who's dropped up what sort of books, and then if there is a particular trend or particular interest that I can get a sense of, often I'll stop at a charity shop and see if I can find some other titles like that, or if Penguin are releasing some, I'll release a sort of a collection at one time and then post about it, so there's a drop that's linked to a certain theme. I mean, even with the new Wuthering Heights film, that was a great moment for everyone to discuss the book and similar novels. So I put together a package of similar books, and I think that was just a really fun part of the project. And with Women's History Month, I'm going to be doing a drop of history books by female authors. Yes, I'm always looking for ways to bring in a theme, and sometimes I'll pull books out and save them and then put together a collection and then release it again. So it's like being some sort of librarian.
Many independently run little libraries don't have an official address. You won't find them listed online or logged in some central inventory. Instead, they're scattered through neighborhoods in unexpected places, such as the book exchange at Miguel's boxing gym in Brixton. There's something exciting about the thought that one might appear as you're ambling through your local streets, or as you're walking to an appointment in a part of town you've never explored before. But if the element of surprise isn't quite your thing, you can start with one of the 90 Penguin book stops, helpfully listed on their website and also linked in our show notes. And if you find that there isn't one near you, perhaps you'd consider making one of your own.
Of other book stops to go and visit, I mean, I'd certainly encourage anyone listening to this to go and look at the other 90 book stops, because all the stewards, sometimes they're not individuals, they're groups. They are really making such an amazing effort to share the books that they have in their book stops and do initiatives. So I would say go and look up where the other book stops are If anyone wanted to start up their own bookstop, as someone who wanted to do it for so long and didn't until this opportunity came up, I would say don't wait, just go for it. If you've got somewhere you can put your bookstop and you've got some time to be the curator, as it were, of the bookstop, then definitely go for it. There's so many different ways that you can create a bookstop. You can really make it your own. And you can decorate it in your own way. You could have different themes. You could focus just on children's books or nonfiction or travel guides. It's like a mini world that you can create for yourself. So I would just say, think about who might be visiting, think about your local area, and take a risk and go for it.
So there you have it, the magical world of the mini library, waiting to be discovered on a street near you. Where will you discover yours? One thing's for sure, in a world where so much of our culture is filtered through algorithms and personal feeds, these little bookstops offer something refreshingly simple, a shared shelf, passing connection, a story waiting for the next reader, a tiny reminder that books still have the power to bring strangers onto the same page. And what better way to wrap things up than with a line from Roald Dahl's 1964 classic, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. When the Oompa Loompas sing their cautionary poem, Television, they offer this advice. So please, oh please, we beg, we pray, go throw your TV set away, and in its place you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall. Well, I've got my book, I've got my coffee, and oh, will you look at that? Just up ahead, it looks like it's a comedian Kate Sharp leading one of her blue Plaque walking tours. Hey, let's sneak into the group and see which plaque she is talking about right now.
Oh, fuck. Sorry, I actually have a deep fear of birds, and the pigeons here are fucking crazy. In my past life, I actually was a bird. So just keep an eye out. There's a lot of shit that will come on you. Welcome to Time Out's most recommended walking tour, as awarded by my friend Rachel, she was a temp at Time Out actually last spring. Yeah, she said I was great. I want a drum roll from you all. Okay, so the Blue Plaques tour is, the Blue Plaque tour, where we will spill top secret English tea on some of our well-known UK celebrities. I want you all to buckle up and keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle, because this is going to be a saucy ride. Sorry, no, there is no vehicle. No, this is actually a walking tour. No, I just was trying to be a bit silly in there. Okay, cute. Do you want to get going? Who am I? Thank you so much for your question, Susan. My name is Kate Sharp. I'm going to be your guide today. I'm sure that most of you have heard of me. Or maybe you've seen me on social media? Now, you're probably all thinking, hey, what makes this person good for the job? Well, I am a trained actor. You may have actually seen me in episode 6, season 4 of Call the Midwife. I play a woman who has genital warts and 5 kids, and I can't take it any longer. I'm also a stand-up comedian. No, I don't know Ricky Gervais. No, I've never met Billy Connolly either. Okay, yeah, I could send them both a message, because that is exactly how showbiz works. Okay, should we start the tour? Should we gag on some history facts? No. Yeah, okay. I can tell you one of my jokes to a completely quiet audience where no one's been warmed up, and I'm sure it will land super excellent right now. I recently went to a cafe. No, don't applaud at that. That is not the punchline. I recently went to a cafe, and I walked into the toilet. Oh, again, that's not the punchline. Hold the laughter. And as I got in there to the toilet, there was a massive poo. And I thought to myself, oh, God, that's 50% disgusting, but 50% impressive. And I went to leave, but a woman walked in. And I said to her, hey, you got to come look at this. And she walked in and stood in the cubicle next to me, and I pointed to the massive poo. And I said, isn't that crazy? And then she looked at me in disgust and left. And I realised, oh God, that woman just thinks I waited in the toilet to show her my poo. And that's the joke that I've chosen to tell you all today. Should we start the walking tour? Great. Okay, everyone, buckle up. Metaphorically, because yes, this is still a walking tour. Now, we were about to see our first blue plaque, but before we do, does anyone even know what the blue plaques are for? Yes, correct. So they are England's version of the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but less actors, with sexual assault, and more men who fought and died in World War II and sexual assault. So most of the people that we're going to learn about today, they were around from the 1700s to the 1960s, the good old days when the UK was actually quite an affordable place to live. Pause for laughter. There is none. If you want to add a bit of fun, let's see how many women you can spot with a blue plaque. And if anyone spots more than 10 women, I'll refund your entire fee. So here we are. To our left, we have our very first exciting, very thrilling blue plaque. No, stop everyone. Don't take pictures all at once. Here he is. So this blue plaque was erected in 2013 by the English Heritage at 14 Wesley Road, Leighton. Now, looking at this, can anyone guess what he did to get the plaque? No, he was not in Downton Abbey. No, just once again to clarify to the group, all the blue plaques you will see today are men who were alive before television was invented. Sadly, no, Daniel Craig has not been awarded one yet. Yeah, no, he is hot. Daniel is hot. I agree. We need more hot men with blue plaques. Yeah. Another hint for who has this plaque. He loved to draw. No, not Picasso. Remember, it's predominantly men who were in England. A hint for you all, he loves trains. Well, loved, because he's dead. So this blue plaque belongs to, drumroll, Harry Beck. Oh, wait, get out of the way. The bus will kill you. The bus will drive over you, Julie, so you relax. Harry Beck was the designer of the London Underground map. It was published in either 1933 or 1833, because I'm just a silly old woman who can't remember dates. No, it was definitely 1933. No, it was. When he created the map, he wanted it to look cute and organised. His map was actually initially rejected because the Underground thought it was way too abstract and people wouldn't get it. So they ran a small run of the map to see if people vibed with it. And it became a huge hit. It's actually the same map we use today. I guess I can really relate to this because being vulnerable to the group. I'm doing a show called Witches and Cocks about the Salem witch trials, and I'm taking it up to Edinburgh Fringe this year. And I guess I'm getting a bit of rejection right now. And you just need one person to see you, and you will be a huge hit. And I can already see it on the stage in the bright lights. I'll do the opening number for you all just to get a bit of a taster. Okay. You got a cock and you're gonna hunt me down 'cause I'm a witch and I'm gonna cut your cock off. So the map he designed was a huge deal worldwide. A lot of the other cities were like, hey, we want that map. And I remember actually, do you all remember when everyone wanted Labubu's? And I was like, I'm desperate for a goddamn Labubu, and I was so close to, KMSing for a Labubu. And his map is like the Labubu, everyone wants it, because when you go to cities like New York and Tokyo, you're going to see the similarities. Fun facts about the Underground, shall we dive into them? Aldgate Station is actually built above a huge plague pit that holds over 1,000 bodies. Imagine that, 1,000 bodies under us. Let's all close our eyes and imagine those bodies under us. London really is just a giant gravesite, isn't it? I'm an empath. I feel things. I'm very in touch with things. Like right now, I can feel, the dead screaming voices through my Crocs. They're saying, tell my story right now. And I'm like, hey, I'm at work. I'm slammed. I'm on a working tour. Back off, buddy. And I guess, I just don't want to hear these voices anymore. I'm a woman. I have a full-time job. Hear me roar. So I'm starting to practice some boundaries. But let's move on, shall we? And let's go look at our next man. Yep, it's another man. Because fun fact, 6 out of 7 of the blue plaques are men. That's 85%. Men. Who runs blue plaques? Men. No, but seriously, English Heritage is trying to change this. So if you happen to know an impressive woman who's been dead for at least 20 years, let them know. But has anyone seen Julie? Where the fuck is Julie gone? Everyone, look to your partner. Is it Julie or is it not Julie? Where the fuck is Julie? Now, this next man we're about to see, he's basically the Paul Mescal of blue plaques. The man you've all been waiting for, and most likely, he's the only reason you actually booked this tour. We're about to go see a dear friend of mine. I've spoken to his ghost, Charles Dickens.
Gosh, what a wild ride we've had today. I'm absolutely buzzing from the episode and the caffeine. Maybe we should mellow out and end our day with a pint. So, let's pop to the local for a quick pub quiz. This round, Coffee Curiosities. Question number 1. In Finland, what unusual food do people sometimes dip into their coffee? Is it A, butter, B, bread, or C, cheese? Question number 2. One of the world's most expensive coffees comes from Indonesia, but why is it so expensive? A, it's grown only at extremely high altitudes. B, the beans are eaten and then excreted by an animal before being collected. Or C, the beans are hand-roasted over volcanic rock. And question number 3. In Turkey, after finishing a cup of traditional coffee, what do people sometimes do with the leftover grounds? A, use them to fertilize plants. B, read them to tell your fortune. Or C, throw them over your shoulder for good luck. Think you've got barista-level skills? A latte artist in the making? Head to the show notes and see how you scored. Well, that's today's episode. A special thank you to Matthew Green and Thomas Clare for sharing their stories, insights, and a fresh perspective on the unique power of coffee. If you'd like to help the Big Smoke keep brewing, why not share this episode with a friend? And if you have a moment, pop a quick 5-star rating wherever you're listening. It keeps this old pot of coffee warm and fresh. Now, go grab a coffee with a friend. Just don't order the 17th century brew, unless you fancy something black as hell, strong as death, and slightly regrettable. We'll see you soon in the Big Smoke.